All right, with no further delay, let's move on to our next discussion. User and entity behaviors. It discusses about the role of machine learning in activity profiling and anomaly detection. To moderate this session, may I call upon on stage Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, AVP and Head of Information Security Engineering and Incident Management for Infosys. Mr. Narayan, if you could come on stage, please. Join us on stage. I would like to call upon on stage his fellow panelists. First, Mr. Rishi Rajpal, Director, Global Security for Concentrix. Mr. Rajpal, if you could come on stage. Thank you. Mr. Shomiron Das Gupta, Founder for Net Monastery. Mr. Gupta, if you could come on stage. Thank you. Mr. Craig Cooper, Senior Vice President for Strategy and Solutions for Gurukul. Mr. Cooper, if you could join us on stage.
Thank you.
And finally, last but of course not the least, Mr. Atul Katavkar, Global Head for AGC Networks. Mr. Katavkar, if you could come on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a wonderful panel discussion in front of you, and Mr. Narayan, the stage is all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. So how many of you familiar with user and entity behavior analytics? Can you please raise your hands? So very few is familiar with user and entity behavior analytics. So despite every year, we are putting a lot of efforts, despite the best efforts every year, the number of cybersecurity threats and breaches and impact is also continuously increasing. So Gartner says user entity behavioral analytics can detect or successfully detects anomalies as well as the malicious incidents that otherwise goes unnoticed using user entity behavior analytics technology. And also UEB can predict, and also UEB can prioritize the security alerts. So that is an important thing of UEBA. UEBA can also coming up with profiling the activities of user as well as the endpoints, which is using the machine learning technologies is important point of user and entity behavior analytics. So I like to start with Atul. So, very less people are familiar with UEBA technology. So can you explain what is user entity behavioral analytics, and what are the drivers behind the UEBA, and how or why it is very important for security stack of the any company?
Right. So thanks DSCI for calling me here. First of all, we have seen a lot of eventful year, 2015. Before that, also lots of incidents. We did not keep on talking about it. Now, traditionally, historically, if you see, we have been deploying major technologies based on either signature-based or those are rule-based. Now, when you see these incidents, despite having so much of investments being done, still you are seeing the incidents. And therefore, this new, trend or, research which is going on is, can we detect something which is traditionally not kind of detected by rule-based or signature-based, kind of systems? And that's where the whole thought came, and then these technologies on user and entity behavioral, got developed. And it's been very recent, I would say, in last 1 year to 1.5 years. People are giving a lot of thoughts on this, and they have been able to successfully, kind of detect a lot of things which otherwise would not have been caught. And that's the basic, theme behind, using these new technologies to make sure, you are able to detect, or rather, I would say these technologies are used to predict rather than, just detect, respond. But these are typically used to predict what kind of things can happen into your network. And the good thing about this is these systems do not, work on agents. So the biggest, advantage with this is you don't need to deploy something on, endpoints and stuff like that. They are self-learning, and they can detect something much beyond IT as well, like IoT devices or biometrics. Those are the devices typically are, vulnerable nowadays. You see the DOS attacks also being used from IoT devices. So this is the technology which will, lead us in the future to detection and really pinpointing what is going on wrong within the network. That's what I would say.
Greg, your views on UBA and UEBA. What is the main difference between UBA and UEBA? Because last year Gartner says UBA, and this year it is UEBA.
Yeah, so thank you, Lakshmi. So a couple of things. At least from our company's perspective, we look at everything to be the same. We look at everything to be identity-based. And so when we look at a user, we look at an entity, we look at whatever, we're looking at entities, users, machines, endpoints, whatever you want to call them, and we look at them as anything that can conduct transactions out on the network. And so to us, there's really no difference. It's just, to be frank, our opinion is that other vendors just happen to say, hey, we do workstations too. And so, marketing, all of those types of things, and hence Gartner went from UBA to UEBA. And there was just a focus on endpoints rather than on identities. It's like as the market matured. So that's my viewpoint.
So why it is important for enterprise security stack, UEBA?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. So I was a CISO about 5 years ago, and what we had problems with was being overwhelmed with amounts of data that was coming in. We had lots of false positives, and our staff just couldn't keep up. And so we were just completely overwhelmed and had it very difficult to make sense of the information that was coming in. So we had lots of data points, but we really didn't have anything that was actionable. And what we're seeing with the UEBA market at this point in time is that organizations are able to prioritize based on the machine learning. We develop risk scores on entities or on users, and then we prioritize and look at those riskiest events or riskiest entities within the organization. And what it does is it compiles all of the different events for any one entity or any one user and provides complete context. So with our product, for instance, you get a 360-degree view of an end user. You can see who they are, you can see what they have access to, and you can see what they're doing with their access. And in the end, we compare that with their peers, and that gives us a low level of false positives. And in the end, organizations can focus on where the real problems lie, rather than having to sift through false positives. And that's evident, like with the Target breach. Everyone is familiar with the Target breach. They saw the breach happen. The SOC saw the breach happen, but no one paid attention because it looked like every other false positive. It was very difficult for them, and it took them weeks or months to respond to that. Where with UEBA, you get a real-time risk score, and you have the ability to start acting on what's most important to your organization.
Sure. Your views?
So, I think the reason I'll take the first question first, right? I mean, why did Gartner talk about UBA and then added entity to the mix? I think a lot of threats that were coming through were involuntary, which are not driven by users at the end. So and therefore they had system accounts which were dormant, or backup accounts which were not production use, right? Which were not interactive, right? Being used for exploiting trust, right? And therefore go lateral. So I think entity behavior also became a very important part. So, however, now there is a clean difference between a user interacting with the network and resources versus an entity interacting with network and resources. So these two needed to be profiled differently, right? And then once you have gone through your learning and once you have your model built up, then you can think about, right, like the way Craig is saying, that you can then interact and then map the different points out and then figure out what the user is doing vis-a-vis and how the entity is a part of the story as well.
Rishi, your views?
Yeah, so basically, I want to start off with an analogy, right? So, because a lot of people do not have the background on UEBA. So, I would like to compare it, like we all take shots, right? Whether it's chicken pox shot, we take cold and flu shots, but we still get infected, right? Because the bacteria changes, the virus changes, and that is, shots are signatures, right? And when the signature changes, we get infected. And this, on the second thought, right, how to get pinpointed and get rid of the false positives is, we get headache, right? So we see a doctor, we don't know whether it's a migraine, full headache, whether it's a tumor, whatever, right? But we trust a doctor which is able to pinpoint to our problem and satisfy, right? And that is very important, because what the doctor is doing, it is eliminating the false positive, because we were doing self-medication and we did not get right? So I think choosing a technology, or it's a fancy word, but it doesn't, I mean, it does not exist earlier. So users were still working on the network. It is just that over last 2 years, the visibility has increased, and that's the reason we want to take action now, right?
Rishi, one more question to you. So how does UEBA help security operations team to detect threats?
Right. So what you can, I mean, manage, you can only manage when you can measure. And I think measurement comes with visibility. And with latest tools and technologies, the visibility has increased. And as per Gartner only, I think companies were investing 80% on prevention, 20% on detection, and the going forward strategy is at least 50-50. And in my personal opinion, it will be reversed to 80-20, means 80 will be spent on detection. So I think once we are able to detect, then we should talk about the remediation. And I think over a period of time, the visibility has increased, which is making us to even have this discussion.
Greg, so what are the key aspects we have to look for a UEBA solution for a small, medium, and large enterprise?
Key aspects. So what I look for in a UEBA solution is a couple of things. First of all, how is it different? First of all, what's the difference between UEBA and SIM? That's a lot of people, they want to know and understand that. This is just a SIM. No, it's not. One of the big differentiators is the amount of data that it can handle. And then the other one is the whole machine learning piece. So with SIMs, typically you have to write rules. You have to look for the known, and you're writing rules based on what you've seen in the past. With UEBA, this goes back into visibility and all, UEBA is dependent on not just rules, but on math, on machine learning. And so you can use the intelligence of the algorithms and all to actually detect unknowns within your organization. That's where the signatures and the other types of approaches in the past have failed us. So we're looking for needles in a stack of needles instead of needle in a haystack at this point in time, right? And right now it gets very, very tough to find the right needle in that stack of needles. So UEBA, with the math, the smarts around that, the machine learning, in my opinion, is one of the biggest differentiators. Now with our product, we also look at access, which is another interesting control. So when you look at not only what people are doing with their access, what are the behaviors out there, we also look at who has access to what. And that's another way to reduce your threat plane as well. So if you can look at outlier access, remove the access, the likelihood of someone to be able to go out and do nefarious activities, be it a compromised identity or it be something like a Snowden where they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing, right? Though, I would look for a UEBA solution to be able to handle those scenarios as well. You reduce that access threat surface though, and then you can go and focus in on pinpoint target what it is, the oddity behaviors out there that you're trying to detect.
More specific question to you, Greg, again. So most of the enterprises, they already implemented some SIEM.
Yep.
Okay, and it is maybe 70% or 80% matured, right, currently. And how much efforts required for any company which already implemented SIEM to start the UEBA journey? And what are all the skill set required? Do we really need data scientists to have this solution in place?
Sure. So my experience is this, and we have a I want to say about 30 Fortune 500 customers now at Gurukul. And what we see are the followings. First of all, about 80% of our customers already have SIMs. They're heavily invested, and to be frank, it'd be a career-limiting move for a CISO or a manager of a SOC to say, I'm going to take my SIM infrastructure and set it aside. Doesn't make sense. So in the I'll say large to medium to even small organizations that already have SIMs, the idea is to take that, combine that with other sources of information that may not be in the SIM, create larger context, and run machine learning on it. So we encourage our customers, and in fact, we have APIs that we go out and talk to the largest SIM providers, the Splunks, the QRadars, so on and so forth, ArcSight. We go out and do that with the vast majority of our customers. So we would encourage you to continue to use your SIM. Now, the other piece of this, though, is what's happening in the extra large areas, and or the customers that don't have a SIM today. Maybe they haven't gone down that road yet, or maybe they have a log aggregator and they want to reduce their costs, those types of things. What we're seeing those types of customers do, especially the largest banks in the world, they're starting to build their own data lakes. And there's an art to doing that as well, and we can talk about that in the future if you want. But they're building a Hadoop infrastructure, a big data lake, and then what they want to do is run analytics on top of that. And they're doing that in favor of a SIM, because again, SIMs can be expensive, they can be costly to maintain, and so they're looking to reduce those operational costs. Now, from a skill set perspective, a lot of the skills are the same. In essence, when we do an implementation, probably half to 3/4 of our customers are leveraging their same security staff to use our product as well as their SIMs and other tools that they have in the SOC. That being said, again, some of the largest customers out there, they have data scientists on staff. With our product and with most of the products on the market, you don't need that. It comes with canned analytics. But you also have the ability to tune the solution to your environment and be able to do what you want to do with it as well. And to me, that is an important piece if you're going to take your analytics program to the next level. If you want to empower the business with some of these analytics, make business decisions, or have the business help inform the information security team about issues and risks, then you may need to be able to tune those analytics. So if I were looking for an analytics solution, I'd be looking for one. Maybe I'm not going to leverage that capability today, but I would be looking for one where not only does it come with canned analytics, but it also gives me the ability to go in and make adjustments, be it with risk ratings, building behavior models for my business purposes alone, those types of things.
Okay. Atul, you already implemented network behavior analytics and you are moving towards user entity behavior analytics. So from your network behavior analytics experience, what is the skill set required, or how much effort you put to implement the network behavioral analytics solution?
So I guess if people have implemented SIM, they would know exactly how efforts go. I mean, it's huge efforts because you need to actually integrate a lot of devices and build your own rules, use cases, and stuff like that. So it's typically a 12 to 15 months project. Compared to that, once you have done that, then it's very, I would say, easy to implement behavioral analysis technology because it's a self-learning. And just to answer your earlier query on do you really need data scientists? So what we are doing is we are offering this SIM ATD as well as this analytics solution as a service. So from the management perspective, you don't need any kind of data scientist behind it. What you need is right security analytics people who actually can read those alerts and take immediate action. So success depends typically on, are you 24/7? Because when you get alert, you need to be there present and you need to actually act on it very fast to make sure that, but you don't need any special skills kind of person to manage this. Very easy. It's a self-learning. So probably it will take a month or 45 days maximum to learn your behavioral of the entire entity and users. Once it learns, then it creates a baseline. So it knows the baseline. If anything goes wrong, then you start getting alerts. But those alerts are really very meaningful. I would say actionable intelligence what you get. and you take actions based on that. So it's easy, and you don't need really, kind of very differently skilled people to manage it.
Shom, so a lot of SIEM vendors already moving towards UEBA, and UEBA vendors already started integrating the log sources directly with their product. So UEBA is more powerful than SIEM, or UEBA will replace SIEM forever?
Wow. So yeah, that's a big quarrel now. So I think I think both of them will succeed, right? I mean, both of them will coexist because SIEM has a certain kind of capability which is unique in itself, and me being from that space and running a product company that does data analytics and big data issues, there is a lot of specialized skill that is required to be, working with customers with large amounts of data and be able to integrate, ingest, enrich, and be able to deliver correlated results. So I think there is a different skill that is required. At the same time, UEBA and UBA space has a separate skill that is required, and you will not see, I don't think we'll see, there might be consolidation that happens, but I don't think that one will cannibalize the other. Yeah, we'll try to encroach and do as many more use cases from the UBA space or UEBA space, but we will definitely not be successful in covering the whole length. Similarly, the other way around, if you're looking at UBA vendors thinking about, now that we're doing big data anyways, why don't we just go do SIM as well? There is a huge data challenge, right, in ingestion and integrating with a checkpoint and those kind of nitty-gritty problems which exist, right? And those will require a lot of operations capability and being able to customize and deliver for a particular customer. So I think these are two different challenges, two different spaces, and you need specialization in different areas to be able to succeed. So, I mean, like you see, Splunk has acquired a UBA company. So consolidation can happen, and consolidation will give you additional teeth, but you will not see one migrating and walking over to the other and taking that space out. I don't think that's going to happen.
Rishi, what is your view on SIEM versus UEBA?
So I think most of it is covered, but my view is that UEBA will make SIEM more intelligent, and it will complement SIEM rather than replacing it. Because we've been relying hugely on SIEM for the past so many years. We have made this investments, we have built the skill set, and not discounting the fact that we cannot replace it. But I think with the way it's going to be, and we are seeing SIM vendors coming up with UEBA, it's going to be complementing the SIM technology and making it more intelligent.
Just one more, the basic difference, if you see right now in the technologies, SIEM is more for, there's no option because you need compliance. And to comply, you need to have those logs. Now, this whole log collection, retention for compliance as well as for forensics currently is not done by, traditional, I would say, UBA providers right now because they are not installing any agents. They are not collecting, the logs. The focus is here to pinpoint, alert, actionable intelligence. So, so from that perspective, all those who need to comply, and also, from forensics perspective, you will need to have SIEM implemented. But to make, as he said rightly, Rishi, more intelligent SOC, you need to have this also in place so that you don't kind of go here and there, but you are actually knowing where the real threats are coming in. Thank you.
Okay. Greg, more specific question to you. See, cyber attacks are changing every day. We are getting new threats and new vulnerabilities every day. So how frequent the product, the UEBA product, has to update the models and the algorithms?
Yeah, so at least at Gurukul, we tend to have quarterly releases. Mm-hmm. And it's not so much for the algorithms that we have in play today, but it's to add new behavior models. And the models aren't based on what we're seeing out in the, what our customers are seeing. We don't go out and build models. Again, this is not rule-based stuff. What we do though, is we try to improve our algorithms over time. So one of the things that Gurukul does, we have a bidirectional research relationship with US CERT. And so when we run all of the US CERT data through our models, and our data scientists work with US CERT. And so when you work with Gurukul, you don't need data scientists, I guess. We have data scientists. But the point is that when we develop these new, we find these new things with researching with CERT, seeing things with our customers. Maybe they have a new business problem they want us to work through. We go out and we'll help them with building models. Maybe there's new data sources that we haven't run across before. Those types of things. And then we incorporate that, or we merge those things together, and then we will release new models based on that. But again, it's not like a signature. It's new math, it's new approaches to solving the same problem.
So can we customize UEBA system by, first of all, is that UEBA system ready to take inputs from the security analysts?
So again, with our product, you can do all the customization in the world that you want to do. And when I say customization, it's configuration based. It's not coding necessarily. We have actually a product we call Gurukul Studio, and what Studio allows you to do is build your own behavior models. You can do your own thing, or you can ask us for help as well. So it's based on basically whatever your business needs. That being said, you don't need to do that. You can install the product. You can turn the product on. You import the information into the system, and it starts gleaning results. And as few as 30 days, you'll start seeing good results out of the product.
Atul, who should adopt UEBA solution for IT infrastructure? Is this only for large enterprises who has large data and large number of incidents, or is this for small enterprise as well?
No, very good question, because this is always, at security you have all new technologies. When it gets released, people do ask whether I need to grow to a certain extent. But I think this is very interesting technology. All sizes of companies can adopt. Even smaller companies who have not invested into SIEM, they can use it to detect early what is happening around, because it doesn't need anything and it's very easy to implement. You don't need really agents to be installed, parsers to be written, logs to be collected. All that is a very complex thing for small organization. So it's very easy to deploy, easy to monitor. What you need really is, you need to be present when the, alert comes, because the alert can come at 2 o'clock in the morning, early morning, but you need to be there to respond to it. That's what is the key. And, we are offering currently Darktrace as a service, which is, again, very well-known, solution. So we offer completely network behavioral as a service, along with 24/7 monitoring.
Greg, you want to add?
Yeah, I do. So one of the other things that you're going to start seeing in products, and we're seeing this with some of the larger financial and insurance companies we work with today, they actually want the product to do more than just throw an alert. So for instance, if you see someone trying to exfiltrate information and UBA picks that up, maybe it's a database person, they normally work in finance, and they go and they start working, and you see them working in the corporate credit card file instead, and they download that. We see that. They try to exfiltrate it, and DLP blocks it from going onto a stick, DLP blocks it from going out, and then it goes out to Dropbox or something like that. All of this would raise that person's risk score. Their risk score would start low, and then as they're doing things that are odd for them to do, their risk score would raise. And when they hit a certain threshold, the product, what our customers are looking for us to do is have the product actually take action at that point. So if they hit a certain level, make them authenticate at a higher level. If they hit an even higher level, maybe you want to disable their account. Go to your identity and management system and disable the account in the IDM system, and then send a ticket to the help desk and have the help desk actually know why the account was disabled. Or if you aren't sure, maybe it's a medium risk where that person's at. Maybe you want to send a real simple email back to the business and ask the business, hey, this doesn't look normal. Is it okay? Is it authorized or unauthorized? two buttons, authorized, unauthorized. If they select authorized, our product will take that information back, and it will lower the risk level on that person because it's an authorized action. If it's unauthorized, then we go back and we inform the SOC. So there's lots of automation that the business, that our customers are driving us towards, and this again comes in those updates that I was talking about earlier.
Sure. So do we have enough talent pool in the industry to deal with the deployment of UEBA and to continue the support?
So yeah, there's an obvious answer, which is no. But UBA and UEBA have one major trick up their sleeve where the system can learn. So it's partially assisted, right, where the models are pre-fed, and it can come into an environment and start learning there, right? Once it starts to learn over time, the decisions that the system makes becomes more accurate. Right, so I think that's the base premise on which the technology exists, right? That's how the models build up, and that's how it learns. Now, by that virtue, obviously you don't need as many skills required to be, skilled people that you might need for any other industry which is linked to the security space. But in the UBA space and the EBA space, where entities are involved, a lot of contextual information is required to be configured into the platform to make it more accurate. So the more time you spend on the system, the better it gets in its decision making. So I think, yes, you need skills, but they could be operational skills. They don't necessarily need to be security skills, right? So by default, security and skills don't go together, right? I mean, we're damned in a way. But thankfully, in this space where it's machine learning based, right, you will need authorization and or help in assisting the development of the model, right? So that can be done by operations person who understands the environment as well.
Atul, you want to add?
No, actually, as I said, I would say this is easier to deploy and, compared to all other technologies, like if you see DAM or WAF or SIEM, there are little ITDs, they are complex, but by far that standard, this will be easier to deploy. But as, it was mentioned, it's more of, you need security analysts who can take something and immediately take action on that.
Rishi, I think you are already in the UEBA journey. So what are the factors on which UEBA's success depends on? And would you like to name a few solutions which are in the space?
Yeah, so basically, so use case for us is very, very different as compared to network behavior. So as a back office company, we work out of the client applications, and we really do not have access to the logs which will be generated by client apps. So what we really were looking for an endpoint behavior analytics tool which has the capability to trigger an alert in case a user deviates from the baseline. And this is primarily for fraud detection and accidental errors or omissions. The network behavior can still complement, and privileged users are still the area of interest, but the primary focus is the end users because they have huge exposure to our customers' data, and primarily all SPI, PI, and we are very, very concerned in case that gets out. Secondly, we want to see an alert, and I don't know, some of my friends from the BPO industry can relate to it. People having bad calls can go to any extent if they know that they've displeased the customer, they can type in obscene language. And I would like to get alerted in case something like this happens, even if that happens on the client applications. So my journey primarily has been on those lines. We have looked at a couple of products, which is Observe IT. We have looked at SureView. We are in the advanced stages of POC. I can say once your visibility increases, you are able to take intelligent decisions. And I think I would like to continue to invest in something like user behavior analytics. because the next phase of this is that we can partner with our customers, because right now you may be saying that 60% of your traffic is web. The next phase is that how can we partner with our customers so that they can deploy a similar technology in their VMware farms or Citrix farms, so that the whole industry it becomes a globally integrated enterprise rather than we doing something in silos and they doing something in silos.
Atul, your views on success factors of UEBA?
So, as I say, really from service provider perspective, I would say technology itself, is a self-learning. So you don't have to really look much into back of it. But what you really need to work on is, see the alerts, see whether, those are relevant to the infrastructure and what you're managing, and quickly respond to that. And that's the key takeaway, what we have seen in the last 6 months, our journey. And very interesting, like as I said, these are the things where, you can detect something which is going wrong in your biometric, for example, or IoT devices, which is typically kind of missed out by, traditional technologies. And therefore, you don't need, any agents to be installed. You detect actually the threats from different devices. Very interesting. And then you can correlate and take actions on that.
Greg, from your experience, what are all the customer expectations or the success factors customers have set for UEBA project?
Yeah, I'd say the number one success factor is they want to see results, and they want to see them quick and accurate results. So if you throw a bunch of false positives, that's a problem. If you take a long time to do an implementation, that's a problem. So then you go into, how do we resolve those things? And so I'm kind of a simple guy. I believe in focusing on small problems in order to get to the larger problem. So we look at specific use cases and we try to build a roadmap for our customers as they're implementing this. UEBA is not just a simple solution install and walk away from it. It doesn't have to be that. We look at it as a strategic platform for most of our customers. It's going to be there for a long time. They're making significant investment. So what we do is we try to get them going. We try to show results quickly. We build upon those results. We add more data sources. We build upon those results. We add more data sources, and so on. It's an iterative process, but we want to show results 30, 60, 90 days out. And very important to us and to our customers to do that. And you just need to look at the base use cases that the customer is trying to solve. Maybe it's data exfiltration. Focus on data exfiltration. Maybe it's privileged access management. Focus on privileged access, and then go from there. And things will build along over time.
Greg, I think supervised and unsupervised algorithms are key for any UEBA solution.
Yes.
Can you explain supervised and unsupervised algorithm in simple terms?
Yeah, real simple. So supervised algorithms are algorithms that take user feedback. So for instance, with our platform, we do both. The unsupervised is just background machine learning. As data comes in, the algorithms make adjustments to the baselines, the profiles, those types of things. Where the supervision comes in play is when we actually have feedback from the business. Like I had talked about before, we have an option called self-audit. And the CISO from Qualcomm, former CISO from Qualcomm, Joshua Davis, talked about security by and for the people at RSA 2014. And if you look up at that presentation and you look at it, it talks about this product that he called self-audit, and he helped us co-develop this. And what it does is it takes feedback from the business, and that feedback gets incorporated in the algorithm. And the business can say, false positive, not false positive. They can say, we're good with this for the next 30 days. From there, the algorithms will disregard those types of alerts for 30 days for that particular user or entity. And then it moves forward. And once that time expires, then it'll start taking those things into account again. So that's really the difference. User feedback, not user feedback. And how does the learning, does it learn from the feedback, or does it not require that? Supervised and unsupervised.
Thank you. Shom, What are the top 3 strengths of UEBA technology? And is there any downside for UEBA?
Yeah, so let's do the downside first. So biggest downside of UEBA is that a badly configured environment, one. Two is bad practices, something that we spoke about. Three is unstructured network, right? Which is sort of, you see that a lot in India where networks are basically built over years and in an ad hoc manner. Today you needed this, so you added something and you added a new VLAN, saved the day kind of environment, right? Those are a nightmare for UBA to or UEBA to basically function because they take a lot of learning and usually those environments don't have the capability to assist the system to learn. So that's a bad situation. So if you don't have a clean environment and you don't have a tiered architecture, it's usually more difficult. Number one. Number two is the top 3 benefits of machine learning, UBA and UEBA. So I think the biggest benefit is how we are able to deliver results very quickly without having to write rules, right? The lack of rules I think is great because you really need geniuses to build rules for you and rules change. So I mean, if I were an implementer, I would have to write, so in the SIM business, for instance, I would have to go to a particular organization, understand that environment, write new rules for them, and go to the next organization hoping that I'll use some of that. That will be absolutely useless because their requirements are completely different. Here, with assisted or semantic learning, I think biggest benefit is that you can leave the system and the system will come back with results. You will be able to give feedback to the system and the system will automatically improve. So I think this is the biggest benefit. Low false positive ratios, lack of, you don't need skills to write rules, and generally very fast to deploy. I think that's, today, we might think that technology doesn't matter, right? I mean, I can just buy technology and implement it, but time to deploy is one of the biggest challenges today, right? There are really large pieces of equipment that are really complex that need to be, flown like a pilot to be able to extract the juice out of the system. So I think UEBA and UBA don't have that problem. I think that's a good thing.
Atul, top 3 strengths and negative side of UEBA.
No, I think he covered most of the things. The first strength I would say, as I said, is if you are like monitoring industrial control systems, then you have a lot of difficulty looking at and getting visibility to non-IT systems. That is something which becomes very simple because you don't need to actually go and install, because if you go and really look at factory level, nobody allows you to touch SCADAs or ICS, and we do monitor oil and steel and a lot of high critical assets. We see this is very big benefit for monitoring those critical assets where you're not allowed to touch the systems. Another thing is IoTs, which again get missed out. But again, from my perspective, when we offer service, I see you need to be alert on the 24/7 because you are getting alerts, but you need to act and respond very fast. Otherwise, it's of no use.
Great. Your views. Mainly, you have to talk about the negative part of UEBA.
I'm sorry?
I like to hear the downside of UEBA from you.
Yeah, I think from a downside perspective on UEBA, the information is only as good as what you feed it. So if you don't have the logs, if you don't have availability of the information, it's very difficult to get results out of UEBA. So there is some upfront work that you need to do in order to do that. Now, most organizations, because of regulatory information or regulatory requirements or other needs, business needs, they have some of those logs, if not all of the logs that you need. But maybe they're disorganized, maybe they're extracted manually for whatever reason. That's when it becomes a challenge to do it. So that to me is the tough area for UEBA. If you don't have the information, you're not going to get the results you need.
Top 3 strengths?
I'm sorry?
Top 3 strengths?
I think that I think the biggest beautiful thing about UEBA is that it helps with the borderless problem today. You don't have control anymore. Joe Sullivan is a CISO on our advisory board. He's the CISO for Uber and former Facebook CISO. And he looks at all of his entities in his entire network as already compromised. They don't put any AV or malware control or any of those things on any of his devices, and the reason is he assumes they're compromised anyway, it doesn't matter. But he leverages analytics to look for changed behaviors, oddities, and that's how he isolates the risks there. So to me, I guess the borderless thing is one of the big things. The visibility for cloud is another thing. And just again, taking a risk-based approach to solving your security problems, I think is another big positive for UEBA.
Rishi, so how do I start this UEBA implementation, and how can I achieve a return on investment quickly?
And I can talk about my used case. I think for us to get ROI, I had to work very closely with our business. Security cannot work in isolation. So two things, whether you have some valid incidents you can rely on and pitch a business case. Second is run a POC and show them what you found. Both case works with business. And I think if you have a big setup, diversified sites, present all over the globe, there is no reason that you will not find anything, right? And if you don't find anything, then there is something wrong with the configuration, nothing wrong with the tool. So I think, and having said that, don't treat user behavior as off-the-shelf product, because it is not going to give any results. As Craig said, intelligence in, intelligent out. And user behavior, actually, the word itself is that people have been doing research for years to predict user behavior. It's been 15 years, I've not been able to predict my wife's behavior. So, I mean, how do we expect the tool to? So, I mean, that is something to look forward.
Shom, so we have different behavior analytics solutions, right? A network behavior, user behavior, and endpoint behavior analytics. Do you think all these solutions going to converge in near future?
Yeah, must converge. I think there is a lot of power in convergence, and the very fact that user and entity have converged, I think so have the other parallels like network, data, and endpoint need to converge as well. Because I'll tell you where those problems are. Because when a threat walks in, right, it has multiple different phases in which it breaks in and exposes our environment till the time it actually decides to steal data and an exfil happens. So in these different phases, different parts of our environment get touched, right? And if we don't cover all those touch points, right, and do them separately, we will not be able to see the full picture, right? So I think that to be able to see the complete picture and see how the whole attack happened or how the data got stolen, you need to have monitoring on each of these environments. Now, the challenge with behavior analytics is that you need to have behavior analytics running on each of these things parallelly, right? So that symptoms come out from each of these items separately, and that's that's the biggest challenge with neurals, is that you need lamellar data to come through, right? And if you have that, so if you can implement each of these separately, you will have a very powerful contextual interface that will be able to tell you, that will be able to traverse through the layers of your environment and figure out what happened, how it happened. So there are tons of questions. Once you get a call that, hey, we got hacked, so you don't know who did it, how did it happen, right? What they took, whether there was insider help or not, right? So I mean, tons of questions those that you have need to get answered, and I think having one view across the layers will definitely help.
Thank you, Shom. I don't know how much time we have now, so I like to open this forum for 2 questions. Maybe remaining questions we can take it offline. Yeah, please.
Hi. Most of the time, I'm like, if by a user, by incidentally happens some events, and in a year or two or twice in a year, So it would have been detected as an anomaly behavior. So how do you, how do you take care of this? By incident, something has happened. Okay, and it has been detected that, okay, he is doing some, but it happened incidentally. He did something and it happened accidentally. So just wanted to know how you go ahead with that.
Greg, you want to answer that?
Me? So I think I understood the question to be if something happened accidentally, how do you do that? Is that correct?
Yeah, multiple times say in a year it has happened 2 times, and the behavior has been captured that he is doing this. So how you deal with that?
Yeah. So again, typically you'll get an alert, one way, shape, or form of the oddity in the behavior, and whether it's accidental or not, that doesn't really matter. The idea is that you want to detect that, and then from there you need to take the appropriate action. And if it's actually something that's not normal for that user, but it's okay for them, let's say they get put on a special project or something, you want to be able to be alerted on that. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but then you should be able to take into account the time frame that behavior is going to be normal for that user or okay for that user. And that gets into that supervised learning process that I was talking about earlier, where the alert happens, the business or the analyst can take action, and you go from there, as Atul was saying. And if you can take action and you can tell the algorithms that, hey, this is okay for the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, they should be able to take that into account and not provide false positives going forward. That's part of the learning process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think.
One final question, anybody?
Okay.
I suggest you, I know there will be a lot of questions. I'm sure all the leaders will be available to you offline, but thank you so much.
Yeah. Please join me in thanking all the panelists for the wonderful knowledge sharing on this interesting topic.